America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We are jumping into our third segment, and boy, I'm glad to see so many of you folks out there on our website. I'm assuming a lot of you folks are capturing our program live there. I see Buxton, looks like Maine, Smithfield, Maine or Vermont or something way up north. I see folks out there in Delton, looks like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm looking at Sugar Grove. I'm looking at Muncie. I'm seeing Texas out there. I'm seeing Florida out there. I'm seeing West Coast. It looks like a couple in California and a few out there in the Midwest, Upper Midwest. Glad to see you folks out there. Thank you so much. Please make sure that you visit two of our other friends located at patriotfb.com and also constitutionclub.ning.com. A couple of great websites where you'll be able to congregate, and it's kind of like a Facebook type setup where you can meet other individuals that are of similar and like mind to you. You know, one of the ideas of what we try to do here, guys, is give you a different way of looking at what's happening around us in our country. And, you know, we're inundated under this torrent of, the fire hose of media propaganda. And so we just try to give it a different twist, different look at the same issues that you're hearing from them, because oftentimes, if you read between the lines, or if you are willing to look beyond what they're telling you at what they aren't telling you, it's often more valuable or more important. In other words, you know, what they don't tell you is more important than what they do. But you have to be a little bit discerning about that. You have to be, willing to not just take what you're told verbatim, in an article and I encourage you to read. I don't encourage you to catch media in video and audio in the sense that, you're watching the news, right? I mean, it's okay to do that, but you have to look at it with a practiced and a trained eye. And the reason is because reading is, one, a forgotten skill for all intents and purposes in the United States anyway. But the real function of reading is that it gives you an opportunity to, one, it's not frenetically paced. It's not a 30-second or a minute and a half snippet of something, and they just kind of throw some news at you and then move on to the next topic. And, you're left like wondering, wow, well, wait a minute, what was the cause of that? Or how did that happen? Or why did that happen? Or what's going to happen now? And it gives you an opportunity in writing to see, in many cases, links that are attached so you can go find more information. As an example here, there's an article I posted this morning from Weekly Standard, and I usually pull all the articles I find from mainstream media. And the reason I do that, there's plenty of articles out there from alternative media, and I consider groups like Breitbart and Judicial Watch and stuff like that alternative media. So, but I also pull stuff from, Fox News and Communist News Network and all of these other, the DC Caller and whatever. The reason is because I'm trying to help you train your mind and train your eye to identify these things. So as an example, this article here is House Committee says 67% of Obamacare enrollees have paid premium, right? Well, in here, there are links in the story that you can click on that will take you to more information. Like, as an example, they have an excerpt from the committee statement, but you can actually click on a link and get the entire statement, so you don't have to take their word for it. You can actually read what they had to say in their own statement. Sometimes there's a link to a chart that you can see, or more backup information, or they name another source somewhere in the body of the article that helps you to go find more information and read opposing viewpoints, aligning viewpoints, whatever. The goal is this is supposed to be a training exercise and an educational exercise for you. And I cannot stress strongly enough why you should be utilizing alternative media in a written format as your training ground. I'm going to tell you the real benefit of it. Putting aside the fact that reading has some great benefits anyway, it will dramatically enhance your vocabulary. Dramatically. Just because you keep seeing it, and you'll become a much better speller, by the way, because you see the words over and over and over and over again. And then the next time you come across and you're writing that word or you're typing that word, bang, it pops up into your mind. And it shows on the forehead, your forehead, right on the little video screen in your forehead, and you're like, oh, okay, I remember that's I before E except after C, or whatever little rule you play with. The point is, there's something about reading that you cannot get from video and you cannot get from hearing something orally. And that is that your brain has the ability to take that information that you've gathered and retain it in a much, much more long-term format than when you read, than when you hear something or watch something, or watch and listen simultaneously. People who read have a greater level of retention. And remember that your job is to become a subject matter expert on some aspect of whatever it is that floats your boat. You know, if you got a thing for, knowing about banking, or maybe this healthcare thing is what really just eats at your craw. So educate yourself about it, but educate yourself about it on every level and every facet, every element of it, so that you are well-rounded and you can discuss not only those ideas and concepts that which ally with your thinking, but also those that challenge your thinking. That's called critical thinking, right? You educate yourself with all the available information and then formulate your own opinion. Once you've formulated that opinion, it becomes something that is unshakable, because you have enough documentation and knowledge and data in your head to be able to defend the position that you've adopted, defend the position that you've concluded from your own research to be true. I'm going to tell you a little secret that you can find out when you're having a conversation with someone about politics or religion or anything else. This is a little trick you can do to find out who's a blowhard and who ain't. Here's what it is, and it's very simple. Ask them why they believe what they believe. Why do you believe that? First thing you're going to get is crickets. They're going to be shocked that you even asked that question. And then for those who are fairly quick on the uptake, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to try to give you some snow job about why they believe what they believe, or they're going to start regurgitating somebody else's point of view, and you're going to recognize it for what it is. The talking points of their whatever special interest that is that they've been adopted or they've adopted as their own. What happens is, it's really amazing to watch. They will start spitting off talking points, most of them, and then you have to challenge each respective one. You take a person who's got a very, very liberal or progressive viewpoint and ask them why they believe that it's fair to redistribute wealth, and narrow it down and keep hammering away at it. Well, wait a minute now. So what you're saying is that it's only fair that we all take care of each other, and I can appreciate that. So let me ask you the next question. How much is fair for me to contribute to you? I mean, I understand that, you're down on your luck right at the moment and you could use some help. Is it my obligation, and you feel I'm obligated? So tell me, how much am I obligated to produce for you? Narrow it down, hammer it down, fine-tune it. Just keep narrowing it over and over and over. And what happens is, at some point in time, they reach the end of where ideology can carry their argument, and logic and reason are the buttressed wall that they run up against. And they can no longer continue down the path of utopian fantasy. And it matters, because once you get, now, generally what will happen is, I don't know how I got on this. I was going to talk about Obamacare numbers, but this is important stuff, folks. Generally, what happens is, long before they get to that point, because they're generally not trained in the school of debate, right? Nobody wants to debate anymore. Everybody just wants to say their thing and then storm off. And you're going to believe it. even if I got to make you believe it at the point of a gun. Nobody's interested in debate. And so they'll keep trying to interrupt and blah, blah, blah. You can always tell when they don't really have any true conviction when they do that. But for those who actually will engage in a legitimate debate, what'll happen is when they run out of steam and they run out of talking points, then they will descend into an emotional argument that has no real bearing on the issues that you're talking about. Or they'll start throwing out these crazy, theories that, well, you must be against it, and they'll start accusing you of this, of racism or cold-heartedness or fascism or whatever. Try it a few times and see how it works. Now, keep it to yourself. You don't have to go out there and part of being a good observer is keeping your own counsel, right? But your job is to educate and train yourself. Nobody else, there's no school you can go to for this. This is something you have to learn how to do. And so go into a place where, you're maybe at a town meeting or someplace like that, and just listen and then engage somebody in conversation and try it out on them. Try it out. You can do it in people in church, too. I mean, it's not limited just to politics, folks. I mean, it covers the entire gamut of issues. Covers a parent's belief on childcare. I mean, there's nothing that's sacred from this principle, right? So try it. I guarantee you'll be impressed with it. And if you exercise it a little bit and figure out where your own, where you fit in the slot, so to speak, you'll become very, very good at it. And eventually, man, you'll just be able to hone right in every time. Try it. It's a very, very valuable tool. It will also, by the way, help you in an open debate to understand, because verbalizing what you believe helps you to finalize what you believe. So don't make the mistake of thinking that, I believe this, but I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because it's too controversial and nobody wants to hear it. Wrong. Expressing what you think and putting it down in writing and verbally oftentimes helps you to solidify what you think or how you think. And writing it especially is extremely valuable. That's why I say to people all the time, don't send me a video or a link or something like that. Tell me why, in your words, why I should be reading this link. Because otherwise, you're just telling me you're parroting somebody else's opinion, which I detest. If you can't take the time to form your own opinion, then you're not a critical thinker. All right, let's get into this House committee before time runs out on us. We've got about 10 minutes, and it's not going to take longer than that anyway. So, because this is real short news. 67% of Obamacare enrollees have paid premiums. The other 37% haven't. How's that? Case closed. Move on. Next story. 2/3 of the people that signed up for Obamacare never actually paid the bill. And the numbers that the administration throws out, let's assume for argument's sake that, they are actually truthful for the first time in the last 5 years and that it is 8 million people. So do the math. Only 2/3 of those paid. So, and by the way, the problem is that one of the things that they had originally stated is they needed 40% of the enrollees to be between the ages of 18 and 34. Those are the healthy younger people. And their goal was to take those people and have them pay the higher premiums to make sure that they're subsidizing the old fogies like me. And so theoretically, if you had 40% of 18 to 34-year-olds, you would have enough critical mass, if you will, to carry, the people that are going to need the most medical care. They wanted 40. They only got 25. And that's a problem. Because what that means is that the taxpayer is going to have to pick up the shortfall. And that's another thing that they really misled you about when they passed this debacle. The truth is that whatever premiums aren't paid by the actual users of the health care is going to have to be made up by independent taxpayers. And that's a problem because if you are one of the working, right, one of the few working these days, you're actually not only paying taxes to carry the non-working, but now you're also paying a subsidy to give them health insurance. And because not enough healthy people signed up, you're now actually going to have to pay even more taxes to carry. I mean, it's an endless reaching into your pocket that, I don't know how America expects to continue when we only have 87 million people carrying 150 million. Come on, guys. So you got 3 people pulling the wagon and 9 people sitting in it. What's wrong with that picture? And by the way, out of the 9 people sitting in it, only 1 has actually got no legs. The other 8 are perfectly healthy. I mean, maybe this guy's got a bad ear. Okay, I get it, but you could still pull. There's nothing stopping you from pulling with your bad ear. Well, this guy's, lost some of his vision in his one eye. Okay, but that doesn't stop you from pulling the wagon with the other 3 of us. I mean, I got a limp, but I'm still pulling. Which is more limiting on your pulling ability, a limp or, blurred vision in one eye? See, that's the problem, people, is that, everybody is interested in what's in it for me. And everybody says, I'm a little tuckered out. I think I'll just jump on the wagon for a while. Well, what about the people who are actually pulling the wagon? Nobody's concerned about them. When we look at Obamacare, it's just another means of gaining, 1, access to the resources of the few who are actually working, to strip them of that, because these are the people who are the natural fighters against government tyranny. Why? Because they've got a vested interest in fighting it. They're being robbed blind. The looters, the 9 people sitting in the wagon, they're just completely happy to let things go on the way they are. They're getting something for nothing. Why wouldn't they? I mean, who cares if the rest of the country goes to hell in a handbasket? I'm getting what I want. I mean, I got free food. They paying my rent. I get free health care. I mean, I can walk in and, somebody will give me some clothes. They give me a phone. I can sit home all day and I can play, games or video games. Or I can, go out there and I can find myself a job that I can do on my terms, baby, where it's just straight cash. You know what I mean? You know how many times I've heard people say that to me? I feel like knuckling them right in the face. How dare you work off the books while you collect unemployment or disability or whatever? How dare you? I know that I know it's become like acceptable. These people who are getting, their premiums paid through Obamacare, hey folks, it would have been cheaper for the government to just say, look, if you don't meet a certain threshold, we're going to give you a tax break. And if you don't pay for the premium, then you don't get the tax break. But instead, we're not going to do anything that might make common sense. We're not going to say, you can put money not into an IRA, which, we realize that, you're hand to mouth, right? So we're going to let you put some money into an account that you can use to tax-free, that you can use to pay your medical bills, and we're going to match it. Wouldn't that have made sense? And we didn't have to change 1/6 of the economy to accomplish it. We didn't have to point the gun at 300 million Americans and say, like it or not, you got to do this to remain in good standing, to retain your citizenship. Is that? Oh, and by the way, it doesn't matter what your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights are about privacy and self-incrimination. We're going to pass a law that says that those are voided out, and you have to sign up on this website, even if you don't have internet access because you're a farmer out in the middle of flipping nowhere. But you have to fill this out. You have to go onto this website and do it. And when you do, you're waiving all of your privacy. You're waiving your Fourth Amendment right. And we have a hidden secret disclaimer that we've buried in code that you're never going to be able to see unless you look at the code. Nobody knows how to do that. That says all of the information you submit can be used for the purposes of auditing, investigation, and prosecution. So your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination has been waived. Huh? How is it that you can pass a law in 2010 that obviates the law that was passed in 1787? How is it you can pass a law in 2010 that strips you and eliminates these rights that were given to you long, long, long before even our founding fathers were alive? These laws are the laws of nature, and the laws that God had laid down that says you, as an individual, are unique, and you have the right to privacy, and you have the right to not be forced to hurt yourself. Those rights superseded the Constitution, the Magna Carta, human written history. But the arrogance and the hubris of this administration says we can pass something in 2010 that obviates the last 30,000 years of human history and human rights, so we can achieve a goal and an agenda of your enslavement. Just beyond comprehension to me. And Americans the world over and the country over clapped. I mean, I remember, it's almost not even worth pointing it out because I've said it so many ways. If you haven't gotten it by now, either you just woke up like this morning and you saw a headline that said, I guess I better go listen to some alternative media because what I'm hearing out of the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda isn't really truth. Or, you're obstinate to your own demise. I don't get it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our last segment this morning, and that is the Wyoming governor who's come out and said the EPA is waging a war on coal. And it's more than that. It's worse than that. The EPA is also telling us that racism is a function of pollution. Huh? How much more can we attribute to global warming and climate change and pollution? I mean, you gotta be kidding me. We'll be back in just a second. You're listening to America's Voice now.